Welcome back to 84 Square Feet, where we talk about all things solitary confinement and the journey to freedom, no matter what your circumstances may be. Hi, my name is Robert, and I'm glad to have you along on another episode here today. We're going to be reading through some letters from lockdown. These are letters that I wrote while I was in solitary confinement. The letter that we're going to be focusing on here today is dated December 6th of 2011. And this was really right at the beginning of my solitary confinement time where I'm trying to figure things out. What's the lay of the land? What COs do I need to look out for? What kind of politics are on the tier? Now, I don't mean Democrat or Republican. I'm talking prison has its own set of politics. And it could be racial, it could be who you're hanging out with, just different laws and rules that govern things. This letter was written just before Christmas time. You can start to hear some of the frustration that I had with some things that were happening. So let's not waste any more time. Let's jump right into the letters from lockdown. This one here, like I said, dated December 6, 2011. I start out, well, praise the Lord and pass the pancakes. This past week has been full of all sorts of answers to prayer. First, I got a letter from Berry County Probation and Parole, which was an order for discharge of probation. It says that the court finds that all conditions of probation were not successfully completed, and it's ordered that the defendant is discharged from probation supervision. Any unfulfilled financial obligations or conditions of the sentence imposed by this court can be pursued according to law. Basically meaning that I still owe my child support obligation, but they no longer want me on probation to monitor me making those payments, as well as potentially violate me or put a hold on me to serve time in Michigan. Praise God. I was hard-headed before I went to prison. I did not pay child support. I wasn't interested in that. I was only interested in putting drugs in my arm. And when you do that for long enough, then you start to have some things pile up in life. Because the problems in your life, they don't go away just because you stick a needle in your arm. That just takes away your presence in life while you're going through that situations. I put my head in the sand for a lot of years with child support, and it wasn't until I finally got out of prison here in 2015 where I said, I need to tackle this and I need to make this problem go away. The concern that I had at this point and why this was important to me, why I was writing this back to my mom, was because in my heart, I wanted to come back to Michigan. When I was done with prison time, I didn't want to have to be on parole out in Nevada because I didn't have any family support. I didn't have anybody else out there that really knew me, cared about me, liked me, loved me, supported me, encouraged me. All of my contacts in Nevada were either drugs, fraud, doing illegal stuff. Everything was a negative. So I really wanted to change that in my life. And I really just wanted to come back to Michigan because there, at least I felt I would have supportive family, friends, and be able to get on my feet a little bit easier without all of the temptations, distractions, and everything else that comes along with being in Las Vegas. Today I got a devotional by Kenneth Copeland called Faith to Faith from the chaplain, which was nice. I also got a plastic cross necklace, a rosary, that I have hanging on my wall. It's nice to be able to decorate a little in here. I'll drop a picture of the actual cell that I was in so you can kind of see what I'm talking about as I describe some of this. The walls are white, and the doors, desks, and bunks are this funky green color that I'm sure they got donated because no one else in their right mind wanted to paint anything with it. I was bored the other day and I built a little shelf next to my sink using a 2-inch wide piece of cardboard for the shelf and then setting it on 2 empty toilet paper rolls that I spaced apart, and then I used toothpaste to adhere it to the wall. Very functional for my comb, my acne medication, toothpaste, and Q-tips. Oh, the toothpaste in there, if you've never been to jail or prison, I'm going to warn you right now, the toothpaste that they give people in there is really like some type of an alternate reality glue. This is like really chalky stuff. It maybe gets your teeth clean, I'm not real sure, but it works great for adhering things to the wall. I used to put pictures and little clip outs from magazines and whatever. Anything that you needed pasted somewhere, you could definitely use toothpaste and handle that. So I decided I was going to build a shelf and adhered it to the wall, and then I had a nice little place for me to put my stuff. I'm 99% sure that that shelf got torn off the wall at some point when a CO came in to search my cell, but that's, then you just build another shelf. That's what you do. Ask Dad how familiar he is with inmates Cadillacing to communicate with each other to send items from cell to cell while they are on lockdown. I am in a downstairs cell and frequently see people on the top tier fly their cars over the rail and then hook up with people that are on the bottom tier. The tier is laid out in kind of an L shape, which makes driving interesting going around those tables and the poles. I'm on a good routine and the days and weeks are already moving by pretty quick. I really enjoy staying up late until around 3 or 4 a.m. as it is so quiet and I can actually hear myself think. After I eat breakfast, I throw earplugs in and I sleep away. In Michigan prisons, are they still serving 3 meals a day or do they do a sack lunch as well, given at breakfast time? It doesn't bother me like it does some of the guys being in the cell all day. The key is to get yourself a routine and block out the fact that you are in the cell. Work on the things that you can change and don't get yourself worked up over what can't be changed at the moment. I am looking forward to moving to GP, general population, as well, but honestly, I don't have any more out of cell time than what I currently have. The differences are getting your property, your electronics, and some other privileges, like using the phone more often and being able to order food on store. I got weighed the other day and I lost around 8 pounds since I have come from High Desert State Prison. I'm still in the mid 220s and I feel great. I exercise hard 3+ times a week in my cell. I can't really do more than that as I would be walking around hungry. So you heard me mention there a little bit about my dad and asking my dad's opinion. My dad actually worked for the Department of Corrections here in Michigan, so I was simply trying to have a little bit of a conversation with him in regards to what things were like where he was at in relation to how things were where I was at. To say that our relationship for a lot of years was strained is probably an understatement. You know, acting the way that I was and doing the things that I was definitely on one side of the law and he was on the other side of the law, which definitely made for some tense times around our house. This was really just an attempt to have a little conversation and try to see what things were like in another state, how they were doing things, and get his opinion. And really to try and just start having a conversation with my dad. The other thing that I noticed as I was reading through that is the staying up late part until 3, 4 a.m. That's not my normal schedule that I like to keep, but it was so loud on that tier sometimes that I would literally have to change my sleep schedule in order to just get a little bit of peace and quiet. If you haven't seen one of my previous videos, I did something on the sounds in solitary confinement, and I found a 2-minute clip here. I'll link to that video as well, but you can really see exactly how loud it got sometimes and just the craziness that was happening. I am reading the Odyssey by Homer. I really had to pump the brakes on how fast I read to fully appreciate and soak in the literary style in which that book is written. I also put in a book request last week with that list of books that you put on the last letter and should have approvals for some or all of them this week. I will write you again soon when I have a for sure on those items. Once I get the approval, there's a 60-day window to receive these items. These will be helpful to use with the Bible Study Methods book that I have, as the Bibles I have now don't have any concordance or study help. As far as the gift coupon is concerned, it expires at the end of the year, and so far I believe Janelle has said that she put $50 on that way. I have not gotten a receipt for that yet, so I'm not sure. The other money that she put on mostly went to the restitution, and I ended up seeing only about $40 of that, which I ended up using to get shower shoes, stamps, a towel, and some hygiene, and some correspondence items. I saw in a JPay email that you said you also did one payment to the gift coupon and you were doing another one at a later date. Thank you for that. I do appreciate it very much. There was the first 3 weeks here where I didn't have deodorant and I was smelling like an old gym sock no matter how many times I would wash up. I am stocked up now though, and I look forward to getting to general population to get the other items that I need once I can order those. I don't know if you've ever tried going a week or 2 or whatever without using deodorant and really just washing up with it's like hotel bar soap that I was able to have. So it's these little tiny, like literally, these little tiny bars of soap that you would get in like a little hotel package. And that's what I had issued to me for like, I think it was the first 3 weeks or so. For whatever reason, I couldn't have some of my hygiene items. I couldn't have the deodorant that I brought from the other yard for some reason. It's just these weird, crazy rules. Ended up having to throw away a whole bunch of hygiene. And I mean, when you're talking about either your family is giving you money so that you can have money on your book so that you can buy that hygiene, or if you're working, if you're one of the few in prison who's able to work, I mean, I think you're making like 20 cents an hour. So, that $3 thing of deodorant, yeah, that took you a while to earn that. So, when you go up to another yard and they just say, oh, well, this deodorant isn't approved on this yard, and they just chuck it. Imagine now how that feels. Like, what if that deodorant here on the streets was like an $80 stick of deodorant? And how would you feel if somebody just took that stick of deodorant that you just bought for $80 and just said, well, that doesn't fit here, we're throwing it out? That's the frustration and some of the things that happen while you're in solitary confinement. If you need to speak to my caseworker for any reason, mine's name is Mrs. Sandoval. I'm sure that will change once I move units, but for now, that's it. I'm getting all mail now, JPay and otherwise, fairly quick now, usually within a day or so of being received by the mailroom here. It's funny that whoever you spoke to wasn't aware of J-mail, and that just goes to show you how disconnected they can be from what goes on here on a day-to-day basis. When you say you got a mag from South Christian and it had an article about my old friend Pete, are you referring to the old vice principal disciplinarian Pete Dykema or whatever his name was? I was trying to remember the other Pete's and I couldn't. I just realized that I have a good chance at getting out of prison shortly before my 20th class reunion. Wow, 20 years. Might be interesting to go to that and see some old acquaintances. I wonder if anyone else has been to prison. Ha. Pete Dykema, I love you, man. Thanks for the input and the influence that you were in my life. There was a lot of years where I just thought the worst of you. I'm going to be real straight here. But I'm glad that we had the opportunity to meet after I got out of prison, because I had the chance then to clean up my side of the street. And I also had a chance to hear Pete's heart for me and for how he perceived that time in my life. And I remember one thing that he said to me after I apologized for being unruly, disruptive, just an overall horse's rear end, really. That is the best description I can say in PG-13 land. So what he said to me that really stuck with me was that it wasn't that he ever had anything personal against me. It's not like he was out on a vendetta, which is how I was perceiving things at that time. But he just really said, I always knew that you had way more potential and that you weren't living in the fullness of the life that God had for you. And that was frustrating for him to see. And I can see that now, looking back on all of that. So, Pete, thank you for everything that you did in my life. I'm glad that we had a chance to shake hands and talk through this. And cleaning up my side of the street is really something that I value now at this point in my life. Being 14 years in recovery, it's just one of those healthy things that you do so that you're not carrying around baggage or any kind of residual stuff from things that you may have done. If you have an opportunity to apologize for something, my advice is do it. Clean up your side of the street. Sometimes that's not always possible though, but you can take a moment and forgive inside of your heart. It really has nothing to do with them. Coming to a place of forgiveness and coming to a place where you're cleaning up your side of the street, you're forgiving people maybe, and you're forgiving yourself. Hebrews 12, verses 7 through 11 out of the Message version. In this all-out match against sin, others have suffered far worse than you, to say nothing of what Jesus went through, all of that bloodshed. So don't feel sorry for yourselves. Or have you forgotten how good parents treat children, and that God regards you as His children? My dear child, don't shrug off God's discipline, but don't be crushed by it either. It's the child that he loves that he disciplines. The child that he embraces, he also corrects. God is educating you. That's why you must never drop out. He's treating you as dear children. The trouble that you're in isn't punishment, it's training. The normal experience of children. Only irresponsible parents leave children to fend for themselves. Would you prefer an irresponsible God? We respect our own parents for training and not spoiling us, so why not embrace God's training so that we can truly live? While we were children, our parents did what seemed best to them, but God is doing what is best for us, training us to live God's holy best. At the time, discipline isn't much fun. It always feels like it's going against the grain. Later, of course, it pays off handsomely. For it's the well-trained who find themselves mature in their relationship with God. I feel these verses encompass my mindset to my current discipline and training. I believe the doors were opened up for me to return to Michigan for a reason. I may still have to do a bit of parole out here, but I can always plead that I'm homeless out here and I wish to return to Michigan. And something tells me that once they see my record out here, they may be more than happy to send me on my way. One of the fun verses that I love out of that Hebrews passage there is, the Lord disciplines those that he loves. And I used to joke with my mom that God must really love me a lot because I felt like I was going through a lot of discipline, but it's really my hard-headedness really brought on all that discipline. It's not like God was singling me out saying, hey, I just feel like picking on this guy. I was doing a lot of things that warranted that discipline to keep me in line. So now I look at it more in the light of, instead of this God punishing me, I look at it as I'm this little kid and I was just running with abandon out towards the street. And here's God right before I get to the street, and there's all these cars passing by, real fast, passing by. And I'm running, beeline. And God snatched me up. And he set me down in a prison cell for a few years to figure things out. But that's how I perceive things now. Instead of a God who was punishing me for doing all these wrong things that I was involved in, it's now a loving God who says, I want better for you. And I want you to want better for yourself. And that's really how I have to perceive things, because I know that that punishment, that correction, that discipline was for my good. Did the magazines get straightened out? I just got a bunch that were delivered to High Desert last month. Every 2 weeks, they bring a bus of people up here, at which time I get my mail that is sitting there for me. I'm not sure how long that's going to last. I'm going to close this up so I can get ready to send. I may not be able to call again until after the first of the year, as I spoke with Elena yesterday. I will try to make a call between Christmas and New Year's, but I'm pretty sure that it won't allow the call to go through. Thanks again, and remember, praise God for the prayers that he has answered, as well as the ones that he hasn't gotten to quite yet. Love, Robert. And just like that, another letter done from solitary confinement. You can kind of see some of the threads in there. I'm trying to figure things out, trying to figure my schedule out. Also trying to connect with my dad and some other people, just on a human level, because you don't have that while you're in there. So you really try to dig deep. Think about all the people that don't have somebody to write back to like this. Where do they go with their thoughts? Where do they go with the feelings and emotions? Because I don't care who you are, while you're inside of that box, you come to terms with some things in life. You start to question things. You really have a lot of time to reflect. Why was I doing this? What was my purpose? What was I trying to achieve? Did I get the result that I wanted? Why am I continuing to do this? What are the catalysts for me making those choices? What do I always seem to keep getting involved with that leads me here? And why? So friends, thanks again for joining along on this Letters from Lockdown. I appreciate your support. If this is the kind of content that you like, hit that subscribe button. I appreciate it. I just started this project about a month ago, and over the last month, I have been completely humbled. I have had almost 80 new subscribers and over a couple hundred hours of watch time. That is very humbling to me. I'm really doing this project to not only honor my mom and the story that's inside of these letters, but also to give people a little bit of hope and encouragement that no matter what you may be going through, no matter what situation you may find yourself in right now, you can make it to the other side. So, friends, thanks again. Be blessed and be a blessing wherever you're at.